Welcome to a very special episode of Cosmic Road, where we are joined by the one and only John Stewart, who is going to bring us some amazing information about the alien interview. Welcome to the podcast, John.
Hi, Jack. Glad to be back. Thank you for having me. I was laughing with you in the pre-interview. My wife was asking me, "Is this guy paying you? You're working awfully hard for this podcast." And I'm joking, but no, it's been a nice mission to be on. I contacted you the day that I got an email from Barb, as I'm going to call her. So I hopefully there's not going to be anything earth shattering here, but again, some revelatory information that we can all piece together and see if this takes us one step further down the road to solving the cosmic riddle. So thank you for having me on.
I can't wait, and thank you so much for doing this exclusive interview with Cosmic Road. I really appreciate it. That's awesome. I can't wait to find out what Barb, and for those of you who haven't seen anything before this, Barb is the wife of the telepath who was communicating with the being in the alien interview. Uh,
Alleged telepath.
alleged telepath. All right.
To be
Do you want
fair,
to give us a little rundown or an update on the alien interview before we get started?
yeah, it's there was a couple of weeks where it was just a plethora of new information or new aspects that were, again, folks, I've said this for 5 years. I'll tell you, it's fake. If somebody could come to me and prove with, even tacit proof that it is a hoax, 5 years. No one's done that. And I'm not being snarky. And like Sean David Morton said, it's been 25 years. Where is one person coming forward? I don't want to get hyperbolic. I don't want to get John Stewart infomercial on here as one of your viewers. But seriously, for 25 years, folks, no one has come forward. I've been doing this for 5 years. It's my 38th podcast, asking people, do you know anything, fake or not? Please let me know. So just in the past couple of weeks, and I sent it to you, we found one of your viewers sent me Whitley Strieber, the author of Communion. He sits on the Mount Rushmore of whistleblowers and people, experiencers who have had contact allegedly with extraterrestrials. And he is at a conference and he says, this alien interview, I think this is real. Do you see that green blip? Well, I saw that out of the corner of my eye when I was writing the book Communion. It is my belief that they were trying to contact me while I was writing the book, whether it was to give information or whatnot. He said that green blip was in the corner of my eye, floating like in air, wasn't on a machine. And when I would try to grab it or put my thumb over it at my desk, it would still shine through or come around my thumb. I couldn't get rid of it. And Whitley Strieber said, how in the hell can a director or a producer know that I saw that green blip and told no one? And 10 years later, a director puts that exact green blip in this alien interview. Whitley was like, this is impossible. This is, what I call it, game, set, and match. There's no way somebody could know that, especially a director, again, respectfully, a second tier video production company. And Whitley never said that publicly. So that really put all of us back on our feet, and all of us, my team of researchers, all five of us. And it just, to your skeptics, how do you get around that? What is the coincidence of that? As Stanton Friedman wrote me an email about an incident in my life a long time ago. I'm not dropping names. He said it's not coincidental. There is no coincidence. It's impossible to calculate that. So I would think that a person a lot smarter than me that would say, wait a minute, no one ever knew about this blip except one person. He never told anybody. In a second tier video production company puts that blip in the alien video. Come on. So, so again, it's like a weekly basis, something really jaw dropping comes forward on this film.
Yeah,
And
and
that's my update.
Whitley knows what an alien looks like, and he didn't
Right.
look at that interview and say that's a prop. He looked at it and he takes it very seriously. And then we have Nico, friend of the channel, Nico, who has also done his own investigations into some of this stuff, and he was shown a very similar video, maybe of the same being. It's kind of unclear, but it was a longer video from a different angle. Oh, and another
Can
frequent
I talk
question.
about Nico for 1 second? Folks, can
Sure,
I say
yeah,
something?
absolutely.
No one, I believe, I could be wrong. Just bear with me here. It wasn't high common knowledge that the film, the original Alien interview film, in my DIA report stated 56 minutes long, just under an hour. How in the hell could Nico know that when he came and told me in the film, and I'm not imitating, and the film was just under an hour? That's exactly what he said to me. It's on an obscure website that we think a military person had a Sony video Walkman, handheld Walkman video attachment to a VHS camera. I mean, what, 7 people know this? What is Nico? And we never fully realized why there was a second camera in the alien interview room. Nico comes forward to say, I saw this on a VHS tape. And I saw it from a different angle, and there was many more men in the room, which confirms my DNA report that there was a total of 6 men, 2 telepath, 4 military, the cameraman, the U.S. Air Force military police on outside the door of the interview suite. How in the hell would Nico know this? I've never met the man. I've never seen the man. I've never heard of him. And he comes and he's corroborating 2 relatively unknown aspects of our investigation. So have it what you will, folks. You don't have to yell at me and use the vitriol. When you look at that bluish, oh, and then somebody else, one eye's bigger than the other. Why would you do that? Well, I mean, the animatronics to pull that off in '96. Why? Just to have a fat bald guy 30 years later notice that? That doesn't make sense. And I know I'm being self-effacing, but people think that's funny. But it's true. Why would you do that? Spend that money and when you know no one's going to notice it. Why? You know why? Because you probably didn't spend that money and that it's probably, as crazy as it sounds, authentic. So that's what I have.
Okay, another frequent question people have is why is the video dark? I think I understand the explanation for that, but could you run us through that?
Right. And Jack, hopefully I'm going to send you the photo and post production. You could put it in. The video was not that dark. The video had a light bluish hue, HUE to it. That's how Victor presented it to make it more dramatic and theatrical and way better looking. The video production company darkened the film. The film, and I'm sure Jack will show you a still when I send it to him, is bluish white. Yes, the room is dark for the comfort of the creature. These beings are used to underground, low lit conditions in their hereditary DNA makeup because through their evolution they are used to or must acclimate to darkness. So they are comfortable in low light situations. If you notice, the light is not coming into the face of the bean. It is on top of the bean. It is a can light. I have slight brain damage. Don't laugh from football and wrestling. Light directly in my eyes oftentimes bothers me, but I can sit in my office with can lighting coming down on my bald head for hours. Doesn't bother me. In my eyes, big time problem. So I can tell you for as an experience, can lighting doesn't bother someone whose eyesight is affected by bright light. And when you see the bluish hue, that's the way it came from Victor. Period. It wasn't darkened.
So yeah, so this being was used to low light conditions. Is that from its home planet, or is that from life aboard a ship, or are they coming from underground somewhere?
I would be guessing. People have told us underground. Um, we're often told, the community, the military, often told by experiencers or military insiders who have knowledge in these programs that uh, many of the Greys planets are very, New Mexico like bright light, sandy, rocky climate, but they need um, more less light, darkness, even a low level light. That is what they're most comfortable for. So again, that harkens back to what if some people told us that the grays, the tall ones, not the small ones, because those are androids, but the tall grays with the big eyes might be us from in the future that went underground, sought refuge in other planets. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just telling you what people have said. And it certainly makes sense when they have these big black eyes sensitive to light, and they're living on planets like they were living on Mars. So my theory would be that they did live underground on Earth, and maybe traversed other planets. I don't know. All I know is their low light is very conducive to them. Their
Yeah,
comfort.
and there are so many stories of these
Allegedly.
allegedly, yeah, and
Yeah,
there are
I mean,
so
God forbid I don't say that.
yeah, there are so many stories of these beings coming from underground, whether from
Yeah,
underground,
yeah,
cities or
yeah.
bases or what have
Yeah,
you.
I think the Aztecs, I don't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry, call them ant people. Well, where do
Yeah,
ants live
the
under the
Hopi, yeah,
ground?
the Hopi,
Or the
yeah,
Hopi, sorry.
but the South Americans and Central Americans have their own
Yeah,
tradition of underground
right,
beings as well,
right.
and caverns underground and the afterlife, and yeah, absolutely. And Timothy
Yeah,
Alberino has said that he's found some of those caverns, so very interesting,
yeah,
very.
yeah,
But okay, so getting to the alien interview, you actually were able to sit down with the because first of all, you tracked down a lot of these participants of that interview. And with Richard Dolan, you went over the names, not like on camera, but y'all
yeah,
privately went over the names of those individuals. And so
yeah,
you tracked the telepath down, and you met with his wife, Barb. We're going to call her Barb.
yeah.
So what can you tell us? Well, how did that go?
Okay. So, because this is my 38th podcast, and after every podcast, I ask for people's help, which is I don't find a lot of UFO researchers asking for people's help, being humble, letting people know that they're not perfect and they need they need as many detectives as possible. I'm proud of that. And I am patting myself on the back because I have said, and I will say till the day I'm dead, that the internet, people on the internet, broke this case for me. Whether it was the old man with connections to the DIA that sent me the report with the names, what the creature was, that's an internet person. To other sleuths on your channel, another person, Jay Wright, um, sent another piece of information to me. So this has been great, and I am glad I've asked for help. Is my point. So the eighth person, 8 people have contacted me in the past 3 years since I've been doing podcasts. And I think there's something the UFO community, Jack, should get used to. It's possible that my demeanor, I know I have an irritating voice, I have crazy eyes, I'm an infomercial. I'm sorry, I get that. I take ownership. But there's something about me to some people that want to come forward, they feel comfortable coming forward to me. And it's a DARPA scientist, a female, a psychiatrist in the Navy, uh, um, Mike, the Lockheed whistleblower, 5 um, military intelligence agents who have pensions with the government, and Nico, and now we have this person. So I'm just saying that there is a pattern here, and the pattern is, like Barb told me at we having coffee. I watched a lot of you're a bulldog. You're tenacious, and I like that about you. Okay, so she sends me an email. She
You're the
sees me.
bulldog, John. I'm just the commentator,
Well,
but thank
just
you.
telling you what she told me. And so and folks, I'm into John Stewart, play-by-play guy. This is what this woman told me. You can believe her, don't believe her. It makes no difference to me. I'm proud that I bring my information to the internet as soon as I possibly can. And I owe that to the people and people like you, Jack, who are doing a great job. So we had a phone interview after we exchanged phone numbers after she emailed me. And she thought her husband was Victor that I was talking about. That's interesting. After about a 45-minute phone interview, and I'm writing like crazy my notes, we decided to meet at a coffee shop. She has come back to Illinois. That's all I'll say. She lives in a city which is not close to Chicago. She came back to tend to her mother's affairs. Her mother had passed, and that's why she's here now in the Illinois in the greater Chicago area. She does not want her name used at all, her email, anything to do with that. And that's my first thing I would like to say. She was cautious with security, but not paranoid. She was careful, but not a nutcase. She wasn't looking around. She parked like in the other strip mall parking lot. She told me that was just how she was taught to do things. make a big deal about it. She, again, didn't want to use her name, but willing to talk on the phone, meet at a coffee shop. She did not want me to bring anybody. So I had to leave one of my Charlie's Angels, my daughter, at home, and I went by myself. And so that was it. So let me give you the skinny of this. I'm going to take my glasses off because I can't see close a lot. Um, I came up to her and she was sitting. Sorry. She was sitting at an outdoor table of this coffee shop in far suburbs of Chicago. Um, and I'm just going to describe her. She looked identical to the folk singer Joni Mitchell, who sings, Cloud Both Sides or that song, identical. She looked like a woman in her mid late 60s you'd see at the Santa Barbara, California farmers market with her cloth bag and fresh cut flowers and a artisan loaf of bread and the little the garden hat, the classy, friendly, nice, no weird vibes. I can't say enough about this woman, and I'm glad that it went that way. She wasn't mean, she wasn't condescending, and that was nice because that I think showed that she was at least receptive to telling me whatever she was told. And this is an important part. We go get coffee. We go to order coffee, and she doesn't want a scone, and I don't want a scone. I certainly don't need a scone. So we go over to the kiosk, and of course, it becomes a Seinfeld episode because Jon Stewart's in it. He's putting like the seventh pack of stevia in her coffee. And I'm like to the side of her with my mouth open, like, I'm gonna use her fake name. Barb, do you want some stevia with your coffee? She's like, I know, I love this stuff. And I said, she had spent a lot of time at the kiosk of the sugar and cream. I said, "What did your father do for a living?" And she said, "Oh, he was a medical doctor. He was in the Navy as a medical doctor, and then his specialty was a certain type of physical therapy that he taught all over the country. And but he was in the Navy as a doctor for a while." And I'm like, "Oh, here we go." Naval doctor, of course, he just couldn't have been a country doctor. We've got, I'm not saying that to hype the story up, but my senses went up like, oh, that's kind of possibly weird. So as we're making our way to the table, and I'm not jumping forward, I've got all my notes. She's like, yeah, she's like, I'm like, that's kind of weird. I haven't heard, I've had weird interactions with, you know, doctors who are in the armed services, especially the Navy. She's like, yeah, we had really weird vacations. I'm like, okay, we haven't begun our interview yet. I'm like, well, can you explain that? She's like, yeah, folks, I am telling you what this woman, who I believe is 1000% truthful, whether or not her husband experienced what he experienced, that's another, that's another. This woman was 1000% truthful. And I'm going to tell you little tidbits why and how to be a good investigator, I think, when you hear these tidbits. She said, yeah, we would go on vacation. We went to Florida and Disney World and all the stuff in the 60s and 70s, but we would go on these weird vacations. I'm like, weird how? She's like, we went to White Sands twice, twice. She's like, we went to a base in Arizona. We went to Dulce, New Mexico, and we looked at my father like, Dulce? And
Yeah,
I'm like,
really.
Barb, she's like, I know now. We didn't know that in the 70s. And she said, we would be at a hotel or a motel, and it would be my father would say, oh, I've got to go to a meeting. All my brothers and sisters, this was a very prominent family in Illinois, folks. She said, well, I'd look at all my brothers and sisters, we'd roll our eyes, and we knew my father wasn't being in, being unfaithful to our mother. We knew that, like somebody's mob's child, dad's in the mob. He's got to go somewhere. And I said, Barb, that is so strange. She's like, yeah. She goes, John, I'm not saying my father was into anything really bizarre. She goes, I'm just telling you, we had like 7 or 8 vacations aside from all our other vacations where my father said, okay, I got to go have a meeting. And they were again, White Sands twice, once in Arizona, Dulce area. I'm not saying the Dulce base, folks. And she said, this was interesting. Look this up. I didn't have time to look this up. And I'm not getting ahead of myself. She said, twice. Her father, please, folks, this is what she told me, took them to Wadsworth, Kansas, which was only available or only open to government people. Like, Barb, what? She's like, yeah. She goes, it's open now. You can go there now. She goes, but she's challenging me. Look it up. No, I don't know whether she went to a section or this is the way she remembered it, but she remembered going to Wadsworth, Kansas with her naval doctor father, and it was off limits to the public. Now, Army bases, Air Force bases are massive. If she, you know, but she has been on military bases before, so why would she make that? And it's just nothing. It's not. There's nothing tangentially related to the story. Just talking about. She is telling me there was some general weirdness regarding her father with these trips and him being a doctor in her life. So
So
take that
what do you think
as you
that
will.
means? That she may have been, the daughter of somebody that potentially in the program and also potentially married to somebody in the program. That is so weird.
Rick Doty will tell you, and a lot of other people, there's a lot of nepotism and intelligence. Take that as you will, and especially in the program. Rear has told me that. Rick Doty has told me that. We have had experiencers tell us that they abducted me, my sister and brother, my mom and dad, my grandfather. So I'm not drawing that conclusion, folks. I'm not
For
drawing that
sure,
conclusion. But Jack is
experiencers,
right. There's something
absolutely.
is not right here.
Yeah, experiencers are often generational, but the idea
Correct.
that being in the control group, as I call it, could be generational is fascinating.
Yeah. So I'm looking at my notes. She said that her life, she was divorced first to a guy in California, and she has a son. But she said her life, like her eyes open, and she got jaded the first time. Usually, it's when we're on the playground and getting teased or something. But she was working in the oil industry, and she said a guy's name, and I'm not going to say his name, but she said he worked for Occidental Petroleum, and she witnessed, you know, basically firsthand was part and parcel to that the oil industry pays off gangs or groups of people or saboteurs, and I'm not saying James Bond, I'm just nefarious people all over the world to not blow up the oil pipelines. And she questioned it with the people from her company, like, well, aren't we in a weird way funding terrorism or funding illegal activity if we're paying all this money for someone not to do something? And then they take that money. She said, and just telling what she told me. She's like, John, I don't know why I'm bringing that up. She goes, but that is really where the first time I looked at life and I'm like, oh God, this is not the life of a prominent doctor's daughter living a nice life in 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 uh, in uh, in Illinois, and she just kind of got a real. It's kind of like probably my first month when I was 19 in the pro wrestling industry in Jerry Lawler's territory. It was, it's true. It's like you're like, oh God, oh, this is not my little fun life with Carol and Jack in the outskirts of Chicago. This is life is hard and life is bizarre. So she brought that up. Um, she mentioned, I'm going to get to her husband now. She mentioned that her and her husband did attend quite a few UFO conferences. Folks, just take this as it is, and researchers take this as it is. She said we spent hours laughing on the way home of these. Some of these UFO people were so wrong, had gotten things so wrong, and standing up there pontificating. She said it was laughable. Now we've heard this from Rick Doty. I'm not saying Rick Doty is the expert, but where Doty said, John, I saw the film, I saw the briefing. 5 weeks later, I'm at a conference and someone's saying the exact same thing, but because they wrote a book, it's got to be real. I'm just saying what Doty said. Barb was kind of said the same thing. She's like, it would drive my husband crazy. Here's the cautionary tale here. And I was man enough to call Dr. Guerrero Reddy and tell him what this person said because I'm a man and I tell people what's going on. That's my hallmark. And she said that Roger, his as we'll call him, tried to come forward to Linda Moulton Howe at a conference, and Linda, acting like a celebrity, kind of just blew him off, whatever. And he was ready to come to her that day or that night or take some time aside and say, this is what I did. And she pissed him off so much that he did not want to pursue that. He also said that she also said that Dr. Greer ticked him off and that Dr. Greer actually was not looking for Victor at one point. He was looking for her husband. So after the interview, I wrote Dr. Greer an email, said, look, this couple, the widow says that you tried to look for them, you ticked him off. That's why he didn't come come to you and relay that he was a telepath, and just telling you food for thought. And Dr. Grill, I'll send you the report, like I am going to do with a lot of people.
Did
So
Greer
the
reply?
moral, Carm,
Did
excuse me.
Greer reply?
Yeah, Greer replied. He said, okay, fine. Um, uh, send me the report. If you can't tell me his name, I understand. But I told Dr. Greer, you pissed him off. Cautionary tale. Hey, we're all adults. We're all investigators. Let's share notes. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. I'm going to tell you what you're doing wrong. And so I ask people for the 30th time, people on Reddit, YouTube, um, Twitter, people who are researchers, casual observers, if we're going to ignore and eviscerate every single person that comes forward because they don't have the alien and formaldehyde, we're going to have nobody coming forward. And 4 years from now, we're all going to be looking at each other talking about the same stories because, we gave them the David Grush treatment. That's all I have to say. Let's be a little kinder. Let's be a little bit more open. Let's treat these people with respect. Let's hear what they have to say and go on, because this woman said, this has taken me through my husband 25 years to come forward. So this would have been out, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago, folks. So just take that as you will. So
No, absolutely.
let's,
I agree,
yeah,
John. We
all right,
need to treat people coming forward with information with respect. Otherwise, why would
yeah,
they come forward with this information?
yeah, yeah. That's all. You're right. So stop talking about her deceased husband. I'm just gonna make it where, like, I spoke with him. It's easier for me. I hope that I'm just giving everyone a caveat. Um, I call him Roger. He was born in 1954 to a very, very wealthy, prominent family whose family started a drink condiment business in the late 1800s. Just telling you what it is. He's from Lower Michigan. That family, that area checks out. Um, and he made a mention uh, to Barb that that they were very well at hiding their assets because there was a rift in the family. I personally know 3 families in the Chicago area that are worth 800, 900 million. I personally know them. I'm not bragging. I'm stating you couldn't find out if they own a pencil. And so that is for her to mention that, like, oh, they've got it so buried. This is what generational wealthy families do with their money. They don't leave it in the bank. It's trusts, and it's multiple trusts, and you can't find it. So I thought that was pretty interesting that she made that comment. He had a falling out with his father, and there was a story where he threw his credit cards back and he said, "You're not going to control me. I'm not going to be controlled. And if this is the way you think you're going to control me, here's your credit cards." And he became the black sheep. So we have an alleged prominent family, generational wealth, and Barb, his wife, tells me, "Oh yeah, the last time he talked to any of his sisters, the one sister lives on Nantucket Island, and she wouldn't give him any information as far as the trust and whatnot." Folks, you don't live on Nantucket Island if you're a vice president of a bank. You live on Nantucket Island if your family has like 3 generations of wealth. And when she said that, and I'm telling people about investigating, when she talked about a generational wealth family, can't find their assets, and then she makes a mundane statement, and his sister lives on Nantucket, I went, oh, okay, that that might bear true that he's from this family. I'm just trying to prove or not prove or see how far um, uh, that the truth that I take it is being told to me.
Is this beverage
Go ahead.
company still around?
Oh yes,
Hmm.
beverage condiment,
Condiment. Okay, beverage condiment. Okay.
beverage condiment from the late 1800s. Of course, they sold it. It's in a corp. It's traded on the stock exchange and stuff. Studied in China for 9 years. Now, I grabbed the table. I'm like, oh, and I'm saying to myself, folks, I'm just giving you the play by play. I'm like, holy shit, because about 2 years ago, one of my leakers said, somebody at S4 has a missing 10-year gap in their bio. And we moved on to something else. I'm not saying this is just telling you the weirdness of this 5-year journey. Someone telling me something 2 years ago and another person coming years later to an unknown and makes that statement. So I don't know if the two are related, but it was a oh Jesus moment for me. Um, he studied at the Shaolin Temple in China. I don't know if I have written or pronounced that right. Shalin.
Shaolin?
She's Talon, Shaolin
Shaolin?
with an H. That's
Uh,
what she said.
I've heard of that in the movies, the Shaolin Temple.
Oh, okay. I'm just telling you what she said.
Yeah, I
What
have
he
no idea.
told her.
No clue.
I have no idea either. Okay. She said that um, first of all, she said he was very in a metaphysical way bizarre. He could read people. He could see a person on the street and not, I'm empathetic. I'm emotionally intelligent. I know when I piss somebody off. I know when someone is happy with me or whatever. She said it was beyond this, John. He would go to somebody on the street that obviously was downtrodden or had an issue, and within like 2 minutes, he has got like this Dr. Phil solution, and she said, I saw this man change people right in front of me. She said it was absolutely amazing. She said his mind was on a level that I've never, I would tell him, Roger, you've got to we got to dummy it down a little bit so you could communicate with other people, communicate with me. That's how she said he would do things like I was in China. I was in China for 9 years, 11 months. 36 hours and I'm like, what is he, Rain Man? We both started laughing, but she's like, yeah, he was very, very specific. Was another person that was very specific that was down at S4? Victor. And I'm going to get to that because I'm going to give you a Chicago fire to house analogy. So there's, two similar
I'm
qualities.
sorry, I hate to interrupt you, John, but
No,
for
go ahead.
anybody that doesn't know who Victor is, can you explain who Victor is?
Victor is a person who claimed to be a government employee who in 1996 brought forth a 3-minute VHS tape of an alleged extraterrestrial interview conducted at an underground facility southwest of Area 51 called S4. And he claimed that he was part of this alien retention and interrogation program. And he came back in 2008, claimed he was dying, pissed off that no one has found out who he was. No one took any serious effort to see if the alien was real or not, and faded off into history.
Okay, so he is the leaker of the video.
Yes.
Okay,
Correct.
okay. All right. Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to clarify that in case
No,
anybody didn't know who that
great
was.
idea. I'm just saying that Roger, in the first 3 minutes of her explaining who her husband is starting to have similarities. He is not Victor, but he has starting to have similarities to Victor, another man at S4. So, okay, so she said there was another thing that was bizarre about him, and it was like like almost like his destiny in life. He was Enoch, and he knew he had spoke fluent Chinese, by the way. He had mastered the Enochian language. I looked it up on Wikipedia. I thought it was ANN, but it's Enoch, like Enochian language. And she said that he told her on a couple of times, just telling you what he said, that fooling around with the Enochian language, the Enochian precepts or belief system or dogmas, fooling around with it was very, very powerful and dangerous. And she said he didn't say it like a nut crazy man. He just said it like matter of fact, like don't laugh or don't screw around with the dogma or the language or whatnot, the alphabet of the Enochian language. And he's also told Barb that some of the writings on some of the saucers he believes had this Enochian writing, the Enochian alphabet. Uh, Forgive me. I'm just telling you what was said. Um, what else did he tell her about? There
Of
was,
course, now
yeah.
everybody's going to go look at
Well,
Enochian
of course,
language.
and
Yes.
I'm just telling you what he said, that, that very few people knew of it. It was real, and
Huh.
that leads me into, he said the entire Sumerian account on clay tablets, the beings came down, they altered us, they gave us life, they educated us in government, in, mathematics and astronomy, all 100% true. Interesting from get-go. He also said 1000%, Barb, we were created by extraterrestrials. We, Homo sapiens sapiens. And he said, and I love this. He said 1000% we were created by aliens. 100,000% the government knows that fact. Like, don't let anybody tell you from the government we're not sure. And he's like, they know, they've known for 80 years that extraterrestrials have created Homo sapiens sapien.
They
Thought that
wouldn't
was
be trying
interesting.
so hard to keep all this secret if they didn't have some answers.
Right. Exactly. Um, okay. So she said he did experiment with cocaine. She said we lived in California in the 70s and 80s, and it was a thing. She goes, but he never overdid it when he was married to me. But he did experiment and did use occasionally cocaine. I talked about how perceptive he was with people. Um, he attended to USC. He got a degree, and this is interesting. While he was getting his master's in astrophysics, a professor went up to him and said, you're so far beyond this that if you really want to make a ton of money, you need to go work for the government or a contractor that works for the government." And she said, "John, I wasn't. I had a normal. She had a, by the way, government job, but not a military or third three letter intelligence job. She worked for a very an agency for the government." She's like, we were kind of middle class. He was cut off from his family, and she said so. He took the job, and he took a job with Teledyne. Now, again, I think I've heard of Teledyne. I go on the internet and I have like a John Travolta civil action moment when he realizes who W.R. Grace is, that it owns Tropicana, Skippy Peanut Butter, Playtex Bra. So I start looking at Teledyne. They are, they do drones, radar, military engagement, components, electrical components, radar systems. I mean, they are just intertwined um, like a spider web with the government in the military. And I went, oh, they don't make swimming pool filters, and they, whatever I thought I was going to find. And he told Barb that it was at his time, or that Teledyne employment took him to Area 51. Now I have five leakers. Most people don't know. Probably talked to about seven people that have been at Area 51. Six of them, five or six of them, were radar based. Everything to do with radar. There's a lot of radar stuff going out there. At least that's my experience. The person we thought was Victor Stanton Howe, we found him at Area 51 for Lockheed. What did his son tell me his father did? Radar. So I'm just saying that's an interesting, there's a lot of radar going, at least people that I have talked to, a lot of radar applications, and Teledyne also specialized in that. He claimed to Barb that he was picked while he was out there at Teledyne to attempt to be a telepath for this extraterrestrial program. So let me stop there. Let me just get so went to USC, got his degree, and he was getting his astrophysics degree. Okay. He said, unlike Lazar, he saw a plethora of photos, not plethora of documents. He said he saw a couple of binders to Barb. He said, but they immersed me with photos. And I am suspecting that that must be something to that, or some reason that he's like, it was almost like, your relative bringing out a box of, he said, Barb, they just, you know, just, um, uh, just dumped a ton of photos, dump meaning showed me a ton of photographs of extraterrestrials. And he said, one photo, he said that I will never shake, I will take it to my grave, was of an extraterrestrial that looked like a mantis. Just telling you what he said. I have no, I want to officially say I have no knowledge of any classifications of extraterrestrials except craze. Wink. But he said that mantis photo has will stay with him till he's dead. That's how much it moved him. But he said that he only was a telepath with grays, not any other species. He felt there were other species at Area 51 or Papoose Lake complex, but he didn't know that. And he said again, another familiar thing to Barb. Barb, it was such a need to know, you would not believe it. Like even some of the information that was debriefing the military people, I would ask them well, what is a pulse radar? I'm making this up. And they would be like, you don't need to know that. Just tell us what else. So he really stressed a need to know. Hasn't everyone that has been out there said the same damn identical thing? Yes, you could find that information that out there is a need to know, but he really stressed that to Barb. He did not know Bob Lazar, but he did not trust them, seeing his progression of coming forward to the public. Um, I don't believe this, but he said to Barb, he goes, I am telling you, someone in the government, was Bob's handler, so to speak, to come forward. He said, you don't come forward out of S4 without, without the ramifications of, an army on top of you, metaphorically speaking. And he told Barb, he goes, that doesn't mean that people in the program knew that he was going to do this. It could have been a rogue person in the military or government that said to Bob, you know, I'll help you. You come forward. I don't believe this. I believe Bob Lazar's story that they cut him off. His wife was having an affair. He got paranoid. I've been there, done that. And he told his friends and decided to go public. But Roger did not know Barb, but he told Barb he strongly believed that that was what was going on. He just couldn't believe that somebody would just walk out of S4. They would leave him in his apartment in Vegas and let him do whatever he did. That just blew his mind. Okay. Any questions at this point?
Well, I mean, he's certainly not the first person to doubt Bob's story or to say that he had a handler, or
Yeah.
some people think,
Well,
there's
I
all
didn't know
sorts of
that. I
theories.
didn't know that people thought that Bob had a handler. That's firsthand knowledge to me. So
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. Well, some people think it's John Lear. So there's
Yeah.
different theories about who was handling Bob, if anybody was handling Bob.
Yeah.
I tend to believe Bob, but
I
I'm
do
very
too.
interested in this insight from a guy who was
Yeah.
actually there. Now, as far as getting this job, did his father-in-law have any input into this? I mean,
Well, I'm gonna
it'd be so weird if they both randomly, independently of each other.
This is the next paragraph.
Okay, okay,
Are
all
you
right,
like a
all right.
freak psychic or something? Starting to scare
No,
me, Jack. Okay,
I'm a
so
dunce, John.
Roger told Barb that his family, his entire prominent Lower Michigan generational wealth family, had a all family close encounter. Would that be a CE3 where they saw a ship, a craft close up? It didn't land, but it really jarred the entire family. So that's what he said to Barb. But he felt that he was picked, a higher power sought after him, picked him. I don't know. Just telling you what he said when he was at Teledyne and at Area 51. Some interesting things. He told Barb that he had a tracking chip implanted. Folks, will you just listen to me and give me a break here? I'm going to tell you the whole story. Told
Give John a
Barb
break, guys.
they put a tracking chip in me. It didn't work. They had to do it twice. So I'm like, okay. Then I'm thinking, well, who has, listen to me, listen to me, who has potentially the most top, top secret information in the world? Wouldn't it maybe a telepath who was talking to an extraterrestrial who's giving this incredible technology? Wouldn't that telepath now possess information that, that is sits on top of this intelligence food chain? Why would you, not track this person? So I called Rick Doty. Folks, just give me 1 second here. I've got a story I have to prove of a facility at Papoose Lake. There's one person in the world who has the DD 214 that's been at that facility. His name is Richard Doty, retired Air Force agent. This is how Richard, I've been speaking with him for 3 years, 2.5 years. This is how Rick Doty tells you the truth about something that's classified. I said, Rick, told him the whole story. I've got this woman, a widow, blah, blah, blah. She said that the telepath had a tracking chip put in his right arm, and Rick Doty's quiet. There, that in the Rick Doty thesaurus, the quiet, you're going to get a nugget. And Rick Doty goes, "Hmm, well, I'm not going to tell you that she's totally lying." I'm like, "Are you serious?" He's like, I'm just not going to tell you that that is a complete lie. So take that as you wish. Take you as that as you will. That's what this man claimed happened. Okay. Now, some interesting tidbits. He told Barb he was like a racehorse at his hotel room in Las Vegas, about to take the Janet flight, like jonesing to get to S4 for the food. Are you listening to me? He told Barb, he said it was beyond gourmet. It was beyond gourmet. He said, Barb, it was so good that I would think about it. I almost joked to myself, like, are they putting some kind of like addictive? He said it was like being at a five-star restaurant. Jack, may I give you a story here?
Please do.
So in January of this year, I'm in Las Vegas. My brother-in-law, who flies a $45 million corporate Falcon X jet, and I interview a 62-year-old hairstylist from Las Vegas who was born and raised in Las Vegas. I'm going to get through this quickly. She knows my mother-in-law. She sits down for 2 hours and tells us that 30% of her clients are Nellis, Tonopah, uh, Groom Lake, and EG&G Dynatrend. She was the funniest, nicest lady in the world. Her name was Sonia. And her father, I'm going to get to the food story. So she's talking. And she said her father became a mechanic on Area 51. He could not do the hour-and-a-half bus trips back and forth to Las Vegas because that's where they live. But they paid very well. She said, as her father said, I didn't see no aliens. He goes, but it is weird out there. And there's areas that guys tell you don't go. There are jobs that people tell you don't apply or accept that job. It's weird. He said there was just a real weirdness. She said, John, everybody has talked about that. There's a general weirdness about Area 51. Of course, he said this. And again, think about Victor the whistleblower had a food story. Roger said the food was incredible. She said this, her dad gets her uncle, a cook, a job as a cook chef at Area 51. She said, my uncle would joke because there was a chef and a sous chef, that's an assistant, in a corner of the commissary at Area 51. And while we're cooking spaghetti and meatballs and tater tots, these guys are putting, tomahawk steaks on the grill and huge shrimp. And she said, she said, my uncle would say, and the cook's name was Harold, if I can remember that. Harold, is the president staying here? What are you cooking this food for? And Harold would say, very special people. And that's what she said. But I would think that this was the cook for S4. I don't think that's a real stretch. And again, folks, here is one guy telling me something, or his widow in 2024, Victor telling us this story in 1996, and in 2024, a woman tells us that her uncle saw a chef and an assistant cooking gourmet meals in the Area 51 commissary. This story, no, but I think it's important that I share that with you, my investigation and what I've ever heard about food at Area 51.
No,
So
that's amazing.
doesn't
I
prove
love it.
anything.
The hairdresser for the control group. I bet she has a lot of information.
Well, now people could roll their eyes at that, or they could say, you know what, John's right. That woman must know. She said the EG&G Dynatron guys were all security, nice guys, military background. Um, she said no one told her anything. So I'm not making any revelations about her, but it was just the same thing. She said, John, Michael, that's my brother-in-law's name. He said, everybody's like, oh, Area 51, weird, weird. And her father said that, but the father quit because he just couldn't handle the bus ride from Vegas to Groom Lake. So interesting.
Okay,
Are
all
you
right.
thinking
So,
for
guys,
somebody special?
join the control group, not for the alien technology, but for the food.
But you know, isn't that don't you isn't those funny anecdotal stories pop up in serious, I
That's
mean,
crazy.
it's yeah, it's funny. And for him to tell her, he's like, it was like pumping my knee, and I'm giving that an out, like a racehorse wanting to race. You wanted to get there, and if I got there at lunch, and what would be lunch, and what would be served for dinner, and Derek Hennessy in 1990 to Wendell Stevens, who was an alleged security guard at S4. He said the food was submarine quality. Now, I was a submarine nerd nitwit in the 90s because there was a lot of submarine documentaries on A&E in the 90s, and there was a lot of computer games I played. I and my best friend was on the G. Hyman Rickover. Submarine food means it's the best food in the military because they're in this tube 200 feet under the water. And it is well known that submarine crews have the best food literally in the military. So here is Derek Hennessy talking about the quality of food, a random uncle talking about seeing a chef making gourmet dishes, and this Roger, alleged telepath, saying a similar story. I just find that tangentially those stories relate to each other. He said that again. I went to Rick Doty. He said I only did a retina scan. I'm like, wait a minute. A couple of people say two keys, thumb and retina. I asked Rick Doty in the same conversation, the only man who has been to S4 that has come forward with the military documents, Richard Doty. Rick, would a telepath be able to get down at S4 by himself? And he laughed. He goes, no. I said, well, what is the protocol? He said, well, there is someone, usually the department head, usually one of the higher ups of the program has the two keys, has the retina, ahead of, let's say, the head of propulsion, or, and usually that oftentimes will be with the top of security. And he said, and somebody in the elevator with that person would not need to do a retina scan, but they would have a retina scan going into their department or area of their specialty, propulsion, interview, so on and so forth. So again, Richard Doty, who doesn't care about this story, is backing up that no, a telepath is not going to is not going to possess two keys, do a thumb and an eye retina. He's just going to do a retina. He would be in the elevator with somebody that would do that procedure for him. He would be escorted. And Rick said, anybody that's in those elevators that don't have, the top echelon, they're escorted and someone else is providing those functions. Do that as you will. She said that he told her that it was the Air Force that ran the area, and the Navy had its fingers in the program. That's his exact wording to Barb.
Well,
Um,
that makes sense from the Bob Lazar information.
yes, yes, exactly. He said he had to strip nude every time going into the interview suite, and there was a disinfectant spray, and he would do this in front of a male nurse. And he repeated to Barb, we're more dangerous to them than they are to us. That's what the Greys, his, the biological androids, we were more of a contaminant to them than vice
Oh,
versa. And he
okay, I've
stressed
got a
that.
question there because
Sure.
people frequently ask about the alien interview. Well, why weren't the doctors wearing hazmat suits? Do you have
Right.
any information, about that?
Yes. Can I pour my coffee for a second?
I'll allow it.
Sorry. My life coach says, John, for you to calm down in your interviews, drink a cup of coffee like you're at a tea party. Folks, I tell you the whole truth. Can I tell you? Okay. So what was the question again about the darkness of the
No, no,
room? Or
no,
oh,
no.
that they had the
About the
doctors.
doctors. How?
Yeah,
Why weren't they wearing hazmat suits or taking
yeah.
some sort of protect?
Again,
Yeah.
the United States government has had physical contact with extraterrestrials. We believe since 1945. Not 47. But J Rod, the Eben one, was the most famous Eben that we had in captivity. So we have known about these grays since 1945. Again, I use the term, and you can see it in the video. The casualness, the run of the mill of this video. They left a stool that they bought in Kmart from Las Vegas in this interview suite. There's cords all around. And Victor tells us that the interview suite is kept at biosafety level 2. I looked it up. Biosafety level 2 is masks, headwear, gloves, washing your hands after every procedure, and short sleeve or scrubs, or I would assume if you wanted to have long sleeve scrubs. But it was not pressurized suits and anything. So the government knew that this type of extraterrestrial was not a contaminant to humans. We, however, were more of a contaminant to them. But you would have to go, according allegedly to Roger, stripped down and and a disinfectant spray. Of course, my humor. I'm thinking it's Andy Dufresne and Shawshank Redemption. He sprayed with the powder, but just wanted to
Yeah,
you
yeah,
gotta
yeah.
laugh a
So,
little bit.
so
You know,
okay, so that's really interesting. So that means
sure.
they
Yeah.
knew what race this being belonged to, and they knew what precautions to take. So they were
Yes.
very familiar
Yes.
with this race. It's very interesting.
Yes.
This
I've
wasn't a
given the
one-off crash with beings they weren't familiar with.
Right. This is 50 years later after first contact. So I give the analogy, and I don't think I'm far off. I could see walking into that room that day, the cameraman's got a styrofoam cup of coffee, and the military guys are talking about their golf game, at the Las Vegas golf course they're going to go play. And, oh, okay, they're bringing the alien, and okay, everyone ready? All right, turn on the camera. I mean, I just get a real sense of casualness with that film. So do what you want. So let's talk about the Grays. I told you we showed a lot of video. He said he interviewed three types of Grays. He never interviewed the Victor Bean. He told Barb told me yet last night on the phone in a follow-up interview that her and Roger watched the Victor film in 2010, the first film. This is very important. She had no idea Victor came back in 2008. This is very important. She looked at me like I had a cactus on my head. She's like, no, I never saw the '08 interview. Remember this. He said he interviewed three types of grays. Um, that they ate a type of clear liquid protein that was made by United States government scientists. This is what he told Barb, and they ate very little of it. Interesting enough, they
So,
had absolutely
he
no.
didn't
Go
interview
ahead.
the being in the video.
He did not, but he
Okay,
said that being is 100% real.
okay, okay,
That's what he
okay,
told Barb.
okay.
And she was not trying to make me feel good that my investigation is holding water. She was like, oh, you know, and she goes, I always thought in my mind, is that Roger talking? Because it was his type of scientific language. I'm like, sounds like my husband. Okay. It wasn't him. Roger told her that the Greys had no emotion, and I'm reading this verbatim, but everyone had a little slight peculiarity that he would know, oh, I'm talking to this one. I would simply think that that is maybe a tick, a way that it's presented in Roger's head, that one would be very reluctant to talk about technology. One would love to talk about spirituality. This is my interpretation. But somehow he told Barb each one of them did have a little personality quirk that I would be able to identify who I was talking to. Like, oh God, this is the mean one, or the one that doesn't give up information readily.
And when you say
He
talking,
said,
do you mean verbally,
I'm
or is
sorry.
he's mind to mind?
I'm going to get destroyed on the internet with this right now. Yeah, I mean, when I talking, I am using my verbiage for a thought projection interview. Thought projection, folks. People have told us you sit down, the being knows what questions you want to ask it. It puts your voice in your head with the question and the answer. Thought projection. It is not ESP. It is not remote viewing. It's putting pictures in your voice in your own head. And he said that they had no emotion. Uh, Very important, no emotion. And he said that was important to maintain order in on their planet, in their star system, and in the universe. They told uh, in thought projection told Roger that we are, and I've heard this from other people in the program. Um, I've heard this said to me, and I've heard this talked about elsewhere that, we're like the children who found the matches. We're so emotional, and yet they can't understand. This is not Roger. This is me from other people. Yet the extraterrestrials cannot understand why a mother would risk life and limb and crawl through a granite mountain to save her baby. They don't have this emotional connection to each other and to life. It's the beehive, it's the workforce, it's the task at hand. Very
Well,
interesting.
and
He
just to
said he never
clarify,
feared. Go ahead. Sorry.
are we talking about the small grays or the tall grays?
Interesting. He said that he only spoke with the small grays. He said that the small grays were genetically engineered 1000% android, part organic, part machine. They were made by the tall grays. Listen to me. What he said, allegedly, they were made by the tall grays, but two species use them. And I asked Barb, well, what did he mean by that? She said, quote, they were basically DNA collectors for
Yeah,
two species.
yeah. Well,
They were the people that you would send the reconnaissance, the explorers, the DNA collectors, the the Messiah. The I'm going to let myself get taken by someone from this planet. I'm going to test them. I'm going to see. This is what Victor said. This is what many other people in the program have said. They feel that some of these beings are on like a weird, yeah, yes, yes, I want you to catch me type of journey. Telling you what other people have said. I have no clue whether
I
that is
want you to
true or
catch
not.
me. The beings that he was talking with, were they prisoners? Were they free range? Who were these guys?
He never said that,
Okay.
and Barb never commented that, and I didn't really ask that. So,
Okay.
from my main leaker that told me about the extraterrestrial retention interrogation, I would assume that you know I think it's a really gray line. This is my own 5-year opinion of talking to so many people about it that they want to be taken and but they're not probably very happy with the treatment, their conditions, and so on and so forth. That's just my speculation. Um, from experiencers and from people in this program that I've spoken to that constantly refer to these beings saying, I'm done with it, my vernacular. I'm done with this. I want to go back. I want to be with my other group that I came with. That doesn't sound like somebody that's, excited to be down in the confines
Yeah,
of
they're not
S4.
waking up every day saying, "Oh boy, I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm helping these humans
Yeah.
out."
And I haven't gotten the answer from Barb that I've asked everyone, and no one. And folks, I'm being honest with you. No one in 5 years has been able to give me the answer. What do these beings do when they are not being interviewed?
No,
Are
good
they
question.
watching TV? Are they sitting there looking at the wall? Are they, I had one person in the program say some of them go into a hibernative state. What do they do for 12 hours? And no one's seemed to answer that. So if I'm going to say, John, do you have any indication that this is all bullocks? That's That's one area that I would go to. Nobody knows what these can tell me what these beings do when they're not being interviewed. He did contradict Victor, although Victor was talking about my being, which is referred to another gray. And that's another thing about the casualness of this program. They didn't even give my Victor being a designation. They called it the other gray. That was in the DIA report. It wasn't EBE 3 or 4, or it was, yeah, that other gray, the tan guys with the round eyes. So is that's casual. That's very informal, in my opinion. You're not even giving a visitor an official designation. Um, so yeah, so if nobody can tell me what these beings do, it's like the $1 million question. No one can tell me who mops the floor. Level 2 with the 6 dead aliens in the liquid storage. Well, who takes a mop? Because we know the government's clean fanatics. Who takes a mop and wipes underneath the beans? Does somebody clean the beans cell or confinement area? Who does that? Janitor who's got a top secret clearance higher than the president? He would have to. Is the bean taken out of the cell or the confines to clean it? These are just things that John Stewart, no one has still been able to answer. So why can't people answer that? That's again, if I ever say this is all bullshit, well, that's the little area that I would go to. So do you have any questions about that or anything?
I could, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
I'm sure a ton, but yeah, let's go on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. You're short on time. Okay. He said
No,
he had
no,
no
no, I don't,
fear.
I'm not short on time. I just want to
Oh,
get, I
okay. I
want to hear
thought
the
you said,
information.
okay. He said he personally had no fear of the beings. He did not think that they were demonic, just that they were emotionless and sometimes very reticent, or they had difficulty, or they purposely were being difficult with answering questions. And again, his words to Barb on the bottom of the page, did not want to be there.
Oh,
Interesting.
okay, I thought of a question. Okay,
Interesting.
okay.
Okay, go
So,
ahead.
all right. So, if they weren't happy where they were, is there any sign that any of them were ever returned to their people?
Well, folks, this is one story that I heard from one of my 5 leakers who has never lied and everything checked out. He told me years ago there's a rumor that 6 beings are in captivity. I have believed, I have been told that all 6 are either dead or returned. And I'm like, returned? What is this? JC Penney's? And he's like, no, one of them we helped go back to its planet. He goes, John, I've been told this by many people. 5 dead, one we helped go back to his planet. So now I've heard there's beings that are still alive. I don't know. I'm just telling you, I'm the play-by-play guy. This is what I've heard.
Okay.
This is Jack. I know you, Jack. You're gonna love this part. He said that all extraterrestrial interviewers, or at least with the grays, the short ebens, must have abnormally low blood pressure due to the high vibration levels of the grays. Now, I've had another person that people think is full of it. His ex-girlfriend came out, said he's a liar, but in an interview off camera, private interview with him, talking about trying to figure out what this monitor was. He said, I can tell you one thing. They buzz. I'm like, who buzzes? He said, the grays. The grays buzz. They let off some sort of electrical discharge, buzzing, vibration. That's what I've been told. Take that for what you were.
That's wild. So
So,
a vibrational level, like they're vibrating to another dimension, or they're just like
well,
their
there
physicality
is
is
there was a line about that, and I'll have to get to that. Yeah, that it was. Oh, it's right here. He said must have abnormally low blood pressure due to the vibration levels of the grays. They vibrate in another frequency. He
frequency.
said
Okay.
that he had B negative blood, and he told Barb, this is also what I'm going to tell you at the end. He told Barb, I don't want to tell you anything specific about that, but if you ever want to unlock the key to extraterrestrial visitation and whatnot, look up B negative blood. So he
Okay.
told her.
Okay.
He
All
said
right.
they are androids. Yeah, yeah, they are androids made by the tall grays, um, and they're scouts, reconnaissance DNA collectors. He said, Jack, you're gonna like this one. When they near death naturally, they they download themselves into another body. And he said to Barb, human beings eventually are going to be embarrassed when they find out that we are just, a container here, that we have numerous lives, that reincarnation is so real. And we're going to feel like fools one day when we humans realize that we were in this panic of there's nothing after when we die. And he was emphatic to Barb about that. And he felt that he was reincarnated many, many, many times. I thought
Well,
that
that's
was
fascinating.
that was
What else did
interesting.
he have to say about, the afterlife or any of that kind of thing?
Yeah, he believed that he was reincarnated, that he had flashes of his own previous lives. She said he didn't get into it, like a crazy person. She said, but Johnny was so emphatic. And she said, it was like an impassioned speech. She said, he's like, Barb, when human beings look back, 1,000 years, or maybe when we die and realize, oh my God, reincarnation's real. This is my fifth life. Or he said they're gonna feel foolish that they worried over, that this life is the finality of our experience. So
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
no,
uplifting and kind of interesting.
absolutely. I resonate with that. I lived most of my life as an atheist until a few years ago when I started having
Yeah. Remember you
experiences.
said that.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
And he said that the implants that Roger Lear took out, he didn't mention Roger Lear. I'm just telling you that the implementation that people think they have been implanted by gray aliens, he said the key to that is they are, and I don't know if Roger Lear has ever said this, but yeah, Roger told Barb those implants are living. They're a type of organism to some degree, even though they appear to be metallic or whatnot. They are living. So that was what he claimed. Um, he said that the Gray's DNA and another species DNA, he used, excuse me, he used the words is totally degraded. And Earth is their desperate last option. Like, oh my God, we made this lower life form, um, we're gonna reap the DNA and use it in our system. We're doing this already as humans. When we just took the pig kidney and put it in someone a month ago, we use valves from cows and other and we use animals, hemoglobins in our research. So are are they that far? Is that crazy of a notion to feel that people 1,000 or 1,000,000 years more advanced than us are coming back to collect DNA and retransplant it and create a better species without this denigrated? He used the word denigrated. I've got it written here. Totally degraded. Sorry. DNA. That just doesn't seem crazy to me at all. He said, the knowledge of other species for him out there, and I spoke about this, is so strictly need to know, and he emphasized that again to Barb. Um, he said that it was his personal opinion that the Greys could be us from the future, but he could never get a straight answer from the Greys or the government. Interesting. He said that the short Greys work for the taller ET Greys. And Barb said that they're like a farm, that everyone's got this job to do. It's like this, you know, um, you know, we're creating beings here. You're doing the building. You're doing, food collection. You're monitor. You're watching the family unit. You're doing the government or whatever. It's very regimented, is what he told Barb. Again, I'm going over this because I talked about reincarnation. Um, yeah, exploration. They have a farmer biologist mentality, and humans are dangerous children. Talked about the Sumerian tablets, are totally true. He mentioned a guy named Steve Quayle. This is a direct quote to Barb. Steve Quayle has it all correct about the Sumerians. I have no idea what that is. I have no idea who Steve Quayle is.
Yeah,
Should I
I've
know?
heard the name. It's ringing a
Yeah,
bell.
I don't
I'm
know.
sure it'll come to me as soon as we
Again,
hang
I'm
up.
just
But yeah.
telling people, folks, you don't have to be a keyboard. I'm just telling you what he said to Barb over
Okay, yeah.
15 years.
Sitchin
That
is
he could
usually the
cite,
one that people
he
quote,
could,
with
yeah,
the Anunnaki, but
She said it was bizarre. He could sit there for 20 minutes and recite all of the lineage, the family tree of Enoch and the family tree of Abraham. She's like, Roger, how could your brain know all this? And she said his intelligence was beyond, like, appeared to be like beyond human. Like he was just, not that he wasn't, not that he was a hybrid, but he was just so empathic and so in tune and so intelligent that it was almost metaphysical to Barb,
Okay,
being
so
with him for
so
15
did he
years.
develop these abilities when he was in China, or was he just born this way?
No, he was like this, and that's why his well-to-do parents sent him to China, um, to study. Now, she didn't go any further than that, but he was sent there because he was like this, is it called a prodigy in school? And when she tells okay, well, that's a bullshit story. Okay, she tells a follow-up story to that 5 minutes later. That when he comes back to the United States when he's 18, he goes to check to register at USC. They're like, you don't have a high school diploma. And he said, what do you mean? I've finished college level courses in China. And the county in Lower Michigan made him take his senior year over again, to get his diploma, and he was livid about that. But so there is her telling up a story 5 years, 5 minutes later, and that backs up him, getting his education, I guess, in China. He talked about, I don't know this person. Please, again, I always ask people, help me with this. You have to yell at me. He's talked about Andrew Biagio. He talked extremely highly of him, almost like he knew him. This guy
I
ran
don't
for
know that person.
president. I don't either. That this guy ran for president and he knows a lot about the program. Andrew Biagio, I mean, maybe he ran as a libertarian. I'm a libertarian. Maybe he ran as an independent, the Constitution Party. So, internet sleuths, look that up. Let Jack and I know what you find. I didn't have time to look that up. He believes, folks, this is not John Stewart. This is Lou. This is Roger. He believes people like Lou Elizondo are 1000% promoted by some government official to make soft disclosure. That's not saying Lou's a liar. That's not saying Lou is a scummy intel agent, but that Lou is being helped, like he said, Bob Lazar, for some soft disclosure. Is that really untrue? I mean, how in the hell did Chris Mellon and Lou Elizondo get out a top secret video of the Tic Tac video? I know enough about government. One of my best friends is a retired United States senator. You can't sneak out a UFO top secret film without someone somewhere going, here you go. Take this. Trust me on that. Okay. So that's what he said about Lou Elizondo. Okay, so how did it all end? Here's what his wife said. He left the Telepath program, went back to Teledyne, still on Area 51. He starts, this is his wife's verbiage. Forgive me, I don't know. She doesn't know because he would not talk about technology. And that's the final thing that I want to talk about. That working back at Teledyne in Area 51, he was working on some sort of laser pulse weapon, some sort of weapon that he thought to himself, wow, could humanity benefit? And in the conferences, in the meetings, in the memos, he was in a conference room one day and he said, well, we're going to use this for XYZ for America, right? And they're like, no, this is strictly military. And Barb said that he said he had a conniption fit, like he was scaring people in the conference room, mother effing people. This, you're not, you, why did Victor come forward? Pissed off at the people in the program not telling the world about extraterrestrial and the technology. Don't you find it funny that this guy has the same story? So he had a conniption fit. And they said that he said to her that they actually, he left and went back to Las Vegas. And of course, they ushered him or, removed him from the base. I don't know when. And that the government then had to debrief him and say, well, are you going to go willy nilly on this? Are you going to tell what you know? And he told Barb that a couple of people in that control group suggested that they let him come out with something, but not the tech. Remember what I'm telling you, not the tech. So that was, and that's what caused the end of Roger being at Area 51. He claims, now my wife is a Social Security guru because she ran a couple of hotels and she had to do this. I never ran Social Security numbers in my auto agency because I was very familiar with the people that I hired. And my wife never heard of this, that he claimed and Barb claimed for him also that his Social Security number was redline. If he went to get credit, a job application, that something with his Social Security number would pop up like invalid, caution, this might be, identity theft. But they called it redline. My wife has never heard of that. So I can't verify that. He said, John, they turned Roger into a bust out. This is a Chicago automobile terminology, bust out. A guy that doesn't have a job anymore. He's living in his mom's basement, no money, just life has destroyed him, bust out. And she said, John, they turned him into like a bum. Like even though we were living together and we had a nice house in California, he had no direction. He did odd jobs for cash and when she said off grid, Jack, my my they froze because when else have I heard that about something from S4? The director, Jeff Broadstreet, who directed and produced the Victor documentaries, told me in an email, John, he appeared off grid. Victor appeared off grid
Huh.
on the lam, hiding. And so did they make what about Derek Hennessy shows up to Wendell Stevens' home? He's got no change of clothes. He's got $7 in his pocket. They turn off Derek Hennessy's debit card. He said he had $350,000, especially from all the bumps and bonuses he was getting. He said he had a shitload of money in his account and the government turned off his debit card. Folks, three people are telling the exact same story of what allegedly the government allegedly does to people that want to go rogue who are in S4.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
that's
that's
what I've been
strangely
hearing is
coincidental.
they used to just take people out, and I think they still take people out. I mean, we've had a few
Yeah,
whistleblowers, Boeing whistleblowers that have not doing so well lately, but I think they tend more to go for the attacking credit and reputation and that sort of thing, destroying a person instead of killing a person. I think that's very interesting.
James Files, who is a low-level mafia um, hitter and was a driver for Chuck Nicoletti, two FBI agents, and a professor, one of the most astute professors on JFK, validate that they think James Files was one of the shooters behind the picket fence, the grassy knoll. I'm not going off on a tangent. He said, John, when I went to CIA school, I can recite the speech they gave at the farm. But one of the weirdest, strangest things he ever told me, because I said, Jimmy, do you think I'm ever going to be in trouble? He said, well, I can tell you what the the key is when you know something's going to happen. He said, this is a verbatim former mafia driver of Chuck Nicoletti and a hitman for the Chicago mob. He said, John, he said, first they'll assassinate your character. And when I saw David Grush about, being a psychiatric ward, I went, oh shit. Then they'll assassinate your dog, and then you know who's next. And you can laugh at that. You can say that I'm a line from an Oliver Stone movie, but this is what two FBI agents and an astute professor called one of the shooters of JFK told me about how the government takes care of things. And I was very worried for David Grush when I saw he's been in a psychiatric ward. Told my wife, I said, it's exactly, I told him Uncle Jimmy, it's exactly what Uncle Jimmy told me. They do. They'll destroy your character. Then it's the dog to let you know I'm here. And David Grush has said they did something at my house. I won't say what it was.
I was just
It
about to
scared the
say
life
that.
out of me. Yes, he did.
Yeah.
It scared the life out of me and my wife, and I contacted authorities, but I won't say what they did, but they made it known they were there. So is James Files a freaking liar? I don't think so, folks. I don't think
That's
so.
exactly where my mind went to, John.
That's right. That's right. So, couple of very quick things. Um, he said without a doubt, and Barb, who again, I believe Barb 1,000% that she totally believes Roger. I believe Roger's story. I'm going to around 63% right now because I haven't seen badges, papers, but I believe Barb 1,000%. That's a truthful, decent human being. More about her. He said very quickly that the United States Air Force plain clothes stalked them. They would show up at restaurants. They would sit next to him, and they would start reading his bio. They would tell him, "This is my wording. We know you and your father don't get along. We know, you cheated on your paper at USC. Your students accused you." He didn't say it. His bio. They wouldn't directly, and they would be talking to each other and not to Barb and Roger. Barb said it was very weird, but you almost got to know these guys. She said, John, it slowed down to they only did it on Wednesday. And I think it was just funny. She's like, Roger and I would joke, "Oh, it's Wednesday. Should we go to the diner and so our handlers and can stalk us again?" And she said, and then after months of that, and then it totally dissipated. And I'm going to tell you why they think why. Roger also thought that the chemtrails. He knew that it was a solar radiation management program, but that what worried him is not telling the public, and that it had barium, strathium. I don't know if I wrote that right. Barium, strathium, or aluminum. All three of those in the mixture, and that really worried Roger. Um, and he was obsessed, Barb said, with the sun and solar activity. Who else talked about the sun and solar activity? Victor, the biologist at S4, in the '08 documentary that Barb and Roger never saw. And Barb looked at me like I had a cactus on my head. She completely did not know about that documentary. So here is my point. How could two S4 people have the same obsession about the sun? What is going on? And I give the analogy. Jack, if I took two firefighters at the same Chicago firehouse, they were on separate details. Morning, this guy was at night. They both worked there for 20 years. The same rule book, the same handbook, the same rules from the city of Chicago, the same battalion commander. Do you think those two firefighters at the same firehouse after 20 years who didn't know each other would have the same stories, the same worries, the same verbiage? Is that
Seems unlikely.
totally
Seems
believe
unlikely.
that
Do,
is a
do
great.
we know why they were so obsessed with the sun? What is
Well,
up there?
I've been asked never to talk about future events, but I'm not. But they were both scared like hell about some future solar event. Don't ask me anymore. I'm not talking about it. And I don't know anything about it. But I think that is bizarre how a guy who never heard Victor's '08 interview was obsessed with the sun and solar radiation, solar flares. And that was one of the hallmarks of Victor's warning in his last documentary.
Did he have a
He called it
bunker?
the grand deluge of the solar, the grand deluge of the solar radiation, Victor warned.
Did
Unbelievable.
yeah, that is. Did he take precautions? Did he have a bunker? Was he
No,
worried
but she
like a
said he was
solar?
obsessed with earthquakes. He would call the earthquake, uh, whatever national. I don't think it's NOAA, but I think there's the National Earthquake Center. He would call them like a crazy man, and they knew his name. Hi, Roger. What do you think now? Oh, you think it's the moon's? Oh, okay, thank you. And so just a comical story.
If those guys are
Um,
building bunkers, I may have to look
yeah,
into building a
right.
bunker.
Right. Two guys in S4, both worried about the sun. I'm not letting that slip by me. He, without a doubt, claims he has been sheep dipped. USC education gone. And Barb says, but you know what, John? In the 15 years I was with Roger, two people, separate times, came up to us. They lived in Westwood, came up to us in Los Angeles and said, "Professor, blah blah blah, how you doing?" And he was not a teaching professor, but she said he had done adjunct professor lectures at UCLA and USC. And she wasn't telling me that story because I said, oh, come on, really? He's got no degree. She was just telling me that, he was this magnetic personality guy, and people came up to him, and she remembers twice students that he lectured to came up to him at two different times to say hi to him and to chat with him. Who else has said they were sheep dip? Bob Lazar, Dan Burrish. I know for a fact Victor was sheep dished because of the difficulty I had once we found his name of finding who he was. So
And
four
sheep
people
dipped,
who claim to be at
can you
S4
explain what sheep
all
dipped?
claim to be sheep dipped. Jack, I think the government has got a fetish, at least in the 80s and 90s. And I'm going to go on the record here, which I don't often do. I believe that the government had a fetish of hiring these brainiac, um, savant individuals who could not stand to be in a classroom, who did not go through, could not stand the structural regiment of college life. Look about Bill Gates. Says he just could not sit there. Zuckerberg could not sit in class. I think the government had a fetish and a strategic um, aspect to hiring these people. So if they did go rogue, they would say, well, Dan Burrish, Lazar, they're crazy people. And to say that Bob Lazar was a pimp, that would preclude him in a security, I think that told them, oh, this is great. Let him on the base. We can destroy this guy in a second if he ever goes rogue. He was what? He had a prostitution ring and he helped out. Oh my God, bring him tomorrow. I believe this. I believe this. I believe this.
That
Who
makes sense
else
to me.
has five military intelligence people helped? Who got his last semester of college at a diploma mill, who is totally discreditable in his professions. Who do you think else got helped? Me? I mean, you can make that claim. Pro wrestler, car dealer, politician, finished his degree at a diploma mill. Give that bald guy every piece of information he wants. I'm speaking flippantly, but it sure does. It sure does seem like this is an MO of insiders. You can do what you want with that information. I don't think I'm crazy. Okay. I did the Wednesday. Talked about he did not like Dr. Glear, loved Sean David Morton, and his wife knew of Sean David Morton. They said Sean was so gracious to them at UFO conferences in the early 90s. Love, love, love. She glowed about Sean David Morton. I love Sean. Sean is one of the people that helped me walk off the ledge when I wanted to quit this whole thing and said, stick with it. You're doing a great job, pal. Don't give up. So I found that interesting. And she said most UFOs, most objects in the sky, Roger said, are government craft. And that was it. And I will finish with a pretty heavy statement that she made. Jack, she said, John, I would ask Roger, why can't you tell me about the crafts, the technology, what the government has learned from the beings? What are we developing? And I will leave the interview with this. He turned to her and he said, Barb, I don't ever, and I will never talk about the technology out at S4 and Area 51 because that's what's keeping you and I alive.
That's powerful.
So, wow.
Did that mean that the house was bugged and that they would know if he disclosed anything?
I don't know that. And I hope you can appreciate my honesty. I'm just telling that if someone, it appears, got wind that he was talking about technology, he told Barb, and she said, John, it was the come to Jesus talk. She said, this is how I'm keeping us alive. And she said, when I wanted to see papers that he would look at, he'd shuffle them in the drawer. And he never, ever talked about technology. So the government subtle threat to him worked, and this is how I'm going to keep us alive. I think that's prophetic. I think that's very powerful. So
That is very,
and
so he was
that is my interview.
he was concerned about his family's safety because
Yes.
of this
Yes.
technology.
And Barb had a son, an adult son. So, he felt that he would not be, didn't live with them, but he felt that that Barb's son would not be immune to to any hostility towards the government, whether that be, you know, character assassination or violence. Or I'm not saying that the government does that. Just telling you that very powerful statement that I will end the interview with.
Okay,
If
great.
I mean,
Well,
my speech of the interview. So, of
sure, sure. Would you have time for a few questions?
course,
Okay,
absolutely,
okay, great,
I can
great.
answer them.
So, how long was Roger working as a telepath, interviewing beings at Area 51?
She gave, because he, again, interesting. He never gave her exact dates. She told me last night, John, from what I can piece together, uh, mid 80s to very early to mid 90s. What I think that could mean, 2 years. She said he was out there for a while because of the Teledyne. You know, what is a while in American vernacular? 2 years, 9 months, 3 years? She wouldn't tell me. She truly did not know. She truly did not know. And his time ended before they got married. And I think she said they got married in 2008 or nine. But so his tenure out there was way, way over. But he never wanted to pinpoint to her, when exactly he was out there. So I can truthfully tell you, I don't know for sure.
Okay, okay. How many aliens did he interview during that decade or however long it was?
He said to her, several. I My notes are all on the ground. So I would assume that that's going to be, or he said a few. I'm not going to be a nudgenik and look on the scramble on the dark ground for the paper, but he used the word few or them. So I'm going to say more than three. Fair enough.
Okay,
And he
okay,
said there were
maybe less than 10, but
right. He said when he was right,
more than
less than
three.
10, more than three, which American vernacular, them,
Yeah,
few,
yeah.
several. Um, and he said that he never experienced Victor, my alien, the round eye, the terracotta color. He said, but that the Victor alien is 1,000% real. And I had three types of grays, but they were all biological android robotic entities with
Okay,
a conscience, with a spirituality, and the conscious could be downloaded. Very interesting.
okay, so that's fascinating. So the beings themselves were artificial, but their souls, did they have souls? Is that what we're talking about?
Well, they must have uh, said that or represented that because they talked about their consciousness being downloaded into another
Yeah,
body, another
yeah.
vessel, another container. I think Barb actually used the word container, if
Because
I can remember and this woman was a energy vacuum, sweetest lady in the world. You know, I, I was wiped out for 2 days. I'm not being disparaging toward her, and she was I'm not saying she was. She just I just got my energy zapped. I was exhausted after our coffee at that coffee shop. Exhausted for 2 days.
no,
Strange.
that's amazing. It sounds like a crazy conversation you had.
Can I tell you what happened at the coffee shop?
Yeah.
So she goes to the bathroom. A bodybuilder comes out to me and he goes, "Oh, you were asking her because we were talking about physical fitness because of her father, her doctor, Navy doctor father that took them to White Sands." I'm sorry. And he goes, "Oh, muscle, lift weights. Don't do the treadmill. Muscle burns fat more than exercise." So that was weird that he felt comfortable. I swear to God, folks. So we're sitting there and I turn over. There is a group of three executives in business casual, two women and a man. The man was obviously Middle Eastern in his 40s. I said, "Sir, would you mind taking a photo of us?" He goes, "Oh, I did this. Are you a newspaper reporter? I'm hearing all these questions." And I said, "Well, I'm an investigator." And so he takes a picture of the back of her, so I could prove eventually to the skeptics that I didn't make this story up. And he gives me back the phone and he turned towards her and he's got a little bit of a Middle Eastern accent. And I'm going to tell you verbatim what happened. This is the magnetism of this woman. He goes, "Ma'am, please, can I please tell you something? I don't know what it is with you. There is this aura. You have this like magic magnetism about you. I can't stop looking at. He was not hitting on it. He's like, it's amazing. And he goes, I hear you two talking about UFOs. Or am I? Are we okay that we were in your vicinity? And she said, no, no, no. And it's very nice of you to say. And here is another stranger talking about this woman's. I'm not saying she's weird or an alien. I'm just saying that she had this presence that this guy felt and saw metaphysically, and that I felt by being exhausted for 2 days. It was unbelievable.
That's
And she
incredible.
wasn't weird, just a nice lady in her 60s, intelligent, pleasant, kind, nothing weird, but whew, vacuum my energy.
So she
Incredible.
she she vibed high. She had a high
She
vibrational
was
rate
vibing high,
in a
I
different
think
way
people
than the
would say.
Greys do, I
That's
presumably.
correct. Correct. Correct.
And her husband was this extraordinary man that had these
Yeah.
abilities. Okay, so was all of his communication and his would you call them interrogations or interviews? What would you call them with the beings?
I would say I would like to think the government is humane. So I have been saying thought projection interview.
Okay, yeah. So all of his thought projection interviews were they all technology focused? We're trying to get technology from the beings.
I'll be very honest with you. We never got into that. He simply did tell her that any technical information, I mean, that was it. He was to relay it to the military aides, generals, who's ever there, and forget about it. And that's when she got talking into the need to know, the compartmentalization. We've heard from thousands of people that the inside of these bizarre projects, that is the methodology, this need to know and compartmentalization. But but when he got something technical, he could not ask any more about it. And she never said, I would assume 2 or 3 years, 4 or 5 beings that eventually I'm sure they talked about spiritual. Victor certainly says that that's one of the major themes of the beings is they enjoy talking about spiritual concepts because they feel that we can understand their technical verbiage, which also has been verified by other people. So, you're talking to nitwits, it's like a physics professor talking to me about physics. My eyes would glaze over. Talk to me about golf or the car business or pro wrestling. I can communicate. So I think the beans kind of dummied down. This is my belief from my 5 years. I think the beans kind of dummied down their um, their communication verbiage with these telepaths. My
No, that
opinion.
that makes sense. Do you have any other
It does
information
make
about
sense.
the metaphysics or the
Yeah,
consciousness or the spirituality? Anything else that you learned about
yeah.
that?
As Victor said, what did we learn? Jeff Broadsreed asked him about the craft or technology. And Victor's like, that's like for the beings to communicate with us, that would be like putting calculus into the Greek, the screeches and the grunts of a chimpanzee. It's impossible. But what can I communicate with a chimpanzee with? This fruit tastes good. I'm a friend. Here's water. Basic concepts. Calculus, impossible. Why would that be any different with and let me say one more thing, what someone told me once. The physics we know that we say are impossible, this is the physics that we know of today. What we knew in 50s about physics is totally different than what we know today, which I'm sure will be slightly different 50 years from now. So because a whistleblower talks about uh, something that sounds crazy in regards to physics, whether that be string theory or flipping in and out of a dimension or gravitics or what or time space theories, that might not make sense to our physics now, physicists, but it doesn't mean that it will make sense 50 years from now. And Barb did say that one of the just like Victor, one of the gripes of Roger was just the lack of imagination with people in this program. The old concepts don't think out of the box. So is it possible, Jack, that John Stewart, the Colonel, Jack, Connor, the general, we're looking at each other saying it's 5 years, nothing's gone. We've not progressed. We've got this, goofball Bob Lazar. Let's throw him in there and see if he can, whip up the frenzy. Doesn't that sound possible? I'm not saying legit. After all we've learned, doesn't that sound possible that they're interjecting these out of the box thinkers into this program to see if it could jumpstart something?
No,
I think that is very likely.
it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay. Did the aliens have a smell? That's something you hear a lot about, especially the Greys. Did
Right.
his wife have any, did he ever
She did
comment
not.
about that?
No, she did not. And the only thing I've ever heard, and it's not for any of my leakers, but I heard a story where some species do have just an incredibly awful aroma.
Okay. Okay.
But
Uh,
that's not for my whistleblowers or leakers or anybody else. I did hear that on the internet somewhere from a pretty prominent military person that went to vintage, 40s, 50s, 60s crash sites.
okay.
But
Okay.
she
So,
did not say that. Yeah.
so how many times would he interview it being? Do you have any information on that?
Oh,
Was it?
this is great. You're scaring me because I've got that on my notes. I said, "Well, is it true?" Victor said, but again, Victor's talking about his alien. We bring it in for interviews twice a month. She, she didn't like think of the answer. She was like, "Oh no, 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 no." Roger said they interviewed a lot. They interviewed a lot. She jumped at that
So,
like
so,
he had
so
told her that, and I don't know what that means. So I would take that as probably more than twice a month. But she jumped at that answer and said, "Oh no, 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 no." Roger said this was very frequent, and they did, and he worked a lot. He interviewed a lot. Yeah,
okay. Well, that is fascinating. And
and that's on my notes. I'm sorry, I didn't. Yeah,
yeah,
contradicts Victor. And again, all I can say is Victor was talking about another alien and a very sick alien. That being in the Victor alien video, I was told 8 months ago needed daily hyperbaric chamber treatments so it could survive in oxygen over an hour to the 2 hour mark. That it needed daily hyperbaric treatments of whatever those beings of whatever their atmosphere was. Not saying they couldn't breathe in oxygen, but that they had a different combination. And this has been told to me by three other people. I'm not getting off on a tangent. That some of the species brought there needed their own chambers with specialized air mixture. And one specific story was one species only breathed methane, and the powers that be were beside themselves to get a occupancy room ready and sealed for this creature to continue to survive and pump methane in there. As crazy as that sounds, and it's so crazy that I believe
and all these beings were recovered from crashes. Is that right?
I cannot, I won't specify to that. I have really, um, one of the things that I tell people and I'm proud of, I don't want to goose the story. I don't know where the Victor alien came from. I can't confirm it came from the Kalahari crash. And again, I have not been told who, with anybody with any insider knowledge willing to speak to me, where these beings came from. I do know that there is a theme of they are coming down like um, oh, I got the word, like martyrs. Oh, we
Martyrs.
crashed. Uh-oh, here comes the government. Yes, take me into custody. That's a resounding theme with many, many whistleblowers about this program. I'm not saying that's true, people. I'm telling you what I've been told.
So
And
the
Victor says the same thing.
so the idea would be that they wanted to
They
come
want,
into custody and to
well,
have
right,
these interviews to give us some information.
right.
That's fascinating. Do
You
we have
know,
any
go
do we
ahead.
have any information about where these beings came from? I mean, are they from our 3D reality? Are they from a
Okay,
higher dimension? Are they
okay.
from the Pleiades?
It's a great story. Great story. So David Oates does reverse speech. I am telling Barbara this. She has no idea who David Oates is. I said he's been doing this for 30 years. He claims Richard Hoagland, the Mars guy, lied. Not that he's a liar, that he lied. Bob Lazar's story, parts of it are lies. David Welch goes, do you know the only person whistleblower in ufology that I believe is telling the truth? And I'm like, oh God, who's this? He's like the whistleblower who called himself Victor. And I'm watching, this is on YouTube. And Victor says they're in my head. And another thing they get from reverse speech, whether you believe it or not, is Zeta Reticuli. So I talked to Barb and I told her this story, and she's like, um, Roger consistently said reticuli, and she was like asking me what is the official. I said, well, I think it's Zeta Reticuli myself, but the reticulum star system, I think that's what they say. This is me and Barb talking. She said that's what Roger said that his types of grays came from.
And any idea about how they get here? Do they go
And
faster than the speed of
can I say
light? Do
one
they go
thing?
slow? Do they jump through
Yeah,
dimensions? How do they?
can I say one thing?
Sure.
And my Victor being, according to the Defense Intelligence Agency, alleged internal investigative memo. Did you like the way I said that? Alleged.
It's all alleged, guys.
Said, right, all alleged that the Victor alien came from the Tau SETI star system, which is in near the reticulum galaxy. I don't know. I'm not an astronomer. Pretty interesting. Okay. So what was your question now? Next question. Sorry.
Yeah, just so yeah, where are they? How do they get from place to place? I guess if you know.
Right. Well, she doesn't know, and Roger didn't tell her.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
could just simply tell you what people have told me. It's the blipping is that's my word, in and out of dimensions. And I tell you, everyone the story. I'm having lunch with someone. I see a photo. I see Pete 45,000. Take this for whatever you want. I said, we have 45,000 aliens in captivity. No, that's 45,000 into the future. I'm like, okay. He goes, John, look, a lot of these beings are us from the future. And then I get the story, and Stephen Greer kind of cut the rough edges off it. An extraterrestrial is from the human lineage. An alien is not from the human DNA, the human lineage. So says this whistleblower who talked about these beings being from the future. Aliens are from, not from the human lineage. Extraterrestrials have our DNA, however amount, and they come from our lineage.
That's fascinating. So they draw a distinction between ETs and
Yes, they do.
aliens.
Yes, they
And
do. You can say
also,
what you want about Stephen Greer, but I told him that over the phone, and he's like, "Well, yes."
now, okay, so you also mentioned time travel. Can you do you know any other additional information about that?
When did I mention time travel?
Well, that they're us from the future.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, just that um folks, I'm trying to talk like an astrophysicist. That time and space does not matter if you can get to a certain point, like a certain level. This is my verbiage. So that it is theoretically possible, and the government believes that some of these are time travelers coming back from the future. And the biggest mission to come back is to repair their degraded, quote, DNA.
And are they friendly otherwise?
Well, it's interesting. Victor doesn't say that he picked up a weird vibe. Roger specifically told Barb no evil and feelings, no demonic feelings, but yet Albert Stein, the man that Danny Sheehan met with on his deathbed, claimed I wouldn't go in the room. It was a demon. It gave me demonic vibes. Jacques Vallée, the PhD UFO researcher, believes that most of them are demonic, and says the Bible says the deceiver will come like an angel of light and perform miracles in the sky. Hmm,
Did
Pretty
Jacques say
interesting.
that? I don't. I may have to fact check you on that, John. I can't remember if Jacques has said
Yeah.
that they were
Okay. I'm
demonic, but
sorry. I'm. Oh yes, he did. Yes, he did.
Okay. Okay.
Folks, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just saying there is a VHS video from 1993 or 4. Jack, I'm going to get it to you, the name of it. And it has the Welsh preacher, I.D.E. Thomas. So put it in YouTube, I.D.E. Thomas documentary. You'll see him part of this hour and 20-minute documentary. One of the men who interviewed Jacques Vallée said, Jacques Vallée specifically told me, do you know why they showed like poltergeists in Close Encounters? Because Jacques Vallée and many others believe that the same things that haunt houses occupy these craft. Jacques Vallée quote.
Well, for sure, there's a huge spiritual crossover with the UFO phenomenon, and I talk
I don't
about
know.
that all the
Yeah,
time. Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
It's a
Okay,
very powerful moment, folks. You want to watch that documentary. It's a 1990s documentary. Came on a VHS tape. It's on YouTube. There's a couple of great guests. If you got to muddle through um, the '90s, bad videography, and the ending will blow your mind. I've put it on YouTube. It's ID Thomas talking about, what the Sumerians said is in Genesis 6 and is happening today. Jesus said, you'll know my second coming. It will be the same days as it was with Noah. The only distinct thing that happened in Noah's days, wars, pestilence, famines, cosmic occurrences, always happened. The only thing that was specific to Noah's days and to what is happening in history right now is something coming from the skies and taking our DNA or intermixing their DNA with our DNA. And that's what it says in Genesis 6. And when it talks about Noah and the Nephilim coming down to earth and mating with women. So pretty interesting. So watch that documentary, and I will get the name of that documentary. And it's got some great pictures of videos from S4 showing a craft going like this in a spiral down into a mountain. It's unbelievable before CGI. So, anyways, but Jacques Vallée did comment that through this person that was interviewed.
yeah, there's so much of a paranormal crossover and UFO paranormal activity in conjunction with UFO events and alien events. I wonder what the paranormal situation is at Area 51.
Yeah.
Are there ghosts at Area 51? Does she have any stories about that? Or
Well,
any?
listen to the hairstylist Sonia.
Yeah, right. She'd
I
be a
would
good
love to get
source.
that. I would love to get this woman on your show
Mm.
because you will. She is not a UFO person, but you're such a nice guy. You can speak with her, and make her comfortable. She just said everybody, and I can't see my hands, but I'm imitating her. She said, looked at me and my brother-in-law. Everybody out at that place said there a weirdness and a weird vibe that never goes away. Everybody.
I believe it. I believe it.
I
So
believe it
what
too.
happened to Roger? What was his fate? He was down and out. He
Yeah.
left. Yeah, he was down and out. Did he ever get back on his feet? Did he
Yeah.
die down and out?
So so
I
he started to get into drugs, heavily into drugs. Um, they did not get divorced, but Barb did leave him and move back. And I'm not going to say where she moved. It was in Illinois. And he eventually, in 2019, died of the coroner's report, acute cocaine intoxication. And I believe this woman. She's like, John, that never made sense. I know that he was doing drugs, but I'm just telling you that he was terrified himself of cocaine. We had so many friends that died of it. She goes, that just never made sense. I have to go with what the coroner said, but I am telling you that does not feel right with me. But that's what he died of in Westwood, California in 2019, acute cocaine intoxication. He said that he actually got into smoking crack. I mean, he went downhill
Oh, that's so
in
sad.
100
That's so
miles an
sad.
hour. Very
Well,
sad. Yeah.
but she can verify that he was doing drugs. So,
Yes.
okay, so it wasn't like completely out of the blue.
No, no.
Okay. All right.
She said, hey, we were kids of the 70s and 80s in LA. Everyone was doing cocaine. But Roger never abused it. Never, because we saw so many guys. I'm the same way. How many pro wrestling literally friends of mine have died in the past 30 years. I think we're at 79 men, and in 50 of them, I can definitely tell you, is acute cocaine intoxication or leading to enlarged hearts or arrhythmias or coronary arrests and with steroids and whatnot. So yeah, that totally makes sense. Somebody being paranoid from the 70s and 80s, seeing so many people die of cocaine, and she was emphatic about it. She said he always um, media. She was always controlled his usage of that.
And it's so sad because, from what I'm understanding, the reason why he had this decline and, left Area 51 and all of that is because he believed that this technology that the beings imparted, assuming that that's what the substance of some of these
Right,
interviews,
right.
and that he spent a lot of time getting, and the aliens may have martyred themselves to give, potentially,
Yeah,
that this technology was not being used for the American people. It was being hoarded by this group.
yeah. It's again a same scenario as Victor. These guys are off grid. They're running for their lives, so to speak, and no one believes them in the UFO world. I mean, folks, sorry. Uncle John speaks the truth. Here's this guy. They've destroyed his life because he was such a brainiac, couldn't get along with his dad, can't enjoy the fruits of his family's fortune. He's living in California. He's a brainiac, yet he can't get a job as a high school mathematics teacher because allegedly his social security number comes up compromised or sketchy, and you're taking jobs at a car wash. I'm not saying that's what he did. Taking jobs for cash. They've effectively reduced you as a bum, and then he tries to come forward to redeem at the end of his life to tell people his story and gets thwarted and snubbed by Linda Moulton Howe and Stephen Greer. I've asked this before. Internet people, Reddit post people, podcasters. What are we doing? What are we doing to these people? And
Well,
can we
I
be
love
nicer
Linda.
to each
Maybe it was
other?
just a bad day for Linda, but
I'm not. Linda Moulton Howe is my second mother. Okay. I love that woman. I have to speak the truth. And I'm speaking the truth no matter whose feelings get hurt. She snubbed him when this guy wanted to come clean and tell the world. So all I'm saying is let's not get pitchforks and torches and go to Linda's house. Let's use that as a cautionary tale to be nicer to each other, to be more receptive of each other, to be less skeptical. Listening to someone's story does not mean that you are participating as a believer. You are giving the respect. You're letting the community. Daniel Sheehan says this over and over again. People are coming forward. They're giving information. It's up to us to do what we will do with it, believe it or not, research it or not. It's our call. And God damn it, let's be more mindful of this for the next whistleblower. I'm just waiting for Nico to be destroyed, on the internet. I haven't seen that happen yet, but I have. David Grush has. Come on, guys, women, please. Let's be nice to each other. Let's give each other a wide berth.
I
Enough
like
said.
that. I like that. And that sounds like a pretty good place to end it on, I guess. I'm sure as soon as we ring off, I'll have 1,000 questions for you, and we may have to do a follow up on this.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, and I'm on your chat room. If anybody has questions, put it in the chat. Jack, I think I'm pretty good about responding to
you
people.
are,
Let me
you
give
are.
everyone my email for the 39th time because this is how people have contacted me. My email is John, Jon, Allen, Alan, Stewart, Stewart, at AOL.com. If you have anything that you feel might contribute to Barb's story, Roger's story, or my alien interview investigation, please send an email. You people have been so helpful to me. Your emails, they have worked. They have gotten me through when I have been stuck on an aspect or a problem or a solution. You people are awesome. You are what makes me go on. And I appreciate the kind emails
I love
and
it.
and advice. I mean
Is
that
there
sincerely.
Are there any other projects or anything else that people should know, before we end?
Yeah, Jon Stewart getting the hell out of the UFO community.
No, no, you've been doing great stuff.
Yes. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, I know, man. Don't sweat the haters. Don't sweat the haters.
The,
You are doing
the
great
minute
work.
the minute the alien interview goes on streaming or whatever we do, it's going to be my wheels on my car spinning down the street. No, I just I've taken a lot of hits and bangs, and I just don't understand. And I'm not pontificating. I don't understand a guy coming forward saying, "I don't know. I need your help, and I'm not sure." And that guy, with some people, has been maligned as a hoaxer, an email story creator, um, fat, crazy eye, infomercial guy, everything. I'm just talking about the haters. And I don't understand that. My only thing is, are skeptics out there maybe afraid to really find the truth? Because that seems to me a defense mechanism. When someone comes forward and says, I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm just doing a play by play for you people, I'm not hiding anything because I've shared this with experts. And will you help me? You attack that guy? Wow. And you wonder why I want out?
Well, I hope you stay in the game because I think you're
Well,
breaking some great
we'll see.
stories
Never
and
say never.
you're doing some amazing investigative work, John.
Yeah.
You really
It
are.
seems like I am the conduit for some people to come forward, and I am honored by that. I will respect them. I will do exactly what they tell me to do to make them feel comfortable. And I will put it out there. Anybody that feels a safe harbor with me and my personality to come forward about anything, you will not be in a minority. You will be in a camp of some really quality individuals that used me as a mouthpiece, and I encourage you to contact me. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you so much for being on the show, John. I really appreciate it. And I think the audience is going to get a lot of great information out of this interview. So I salute your great investigations and thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to all your cosmic viewers. You brighten my day with your funny comments and your pithy comments, and I've spit up my coffee about 3 or 4 times. You have the greatest. You do, and I don't mind saying that. I'll end with this. The Cosmic Road. You have some of the funniest, intelligent viewers out of any podcast I've been on. So thank you, and thank you to them.
I do. I'm honored to have them.